Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Tara Frame, and I'm an attorney at Frame and Frame. I've been practicing for over 26 years now, and my areas of practice are estate planning, elder law, which includes Medicaid planning and long-term care planning, guardianships, wills and trusts, powers of attorney, and estate administration and probate. So there's some things that that have come up recently, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. Recently, we have been voted for, I believe, the 5th or 6th year in a row as the best law firm in Pasadena by members of the community in the Pasadena Voice. So we're proud of that recent honor. So let's get started. So, recently when I've been home with my family, there's some things that have come up on social media and that I've thought about myself. So number one is, if something happens and there's an emergency, do you have an emergency contact list? So if something should happen to you, do your parents or your sister, your family, do they have a contact list of people that they would call? Let's say something happened and your neighbor was the first person to respond. Where would they, is there an easily accessible emergency contact list that would name, your doctors, your attorney, your family members, things like that. So I think that's an important thing to have if there were an emergency. Number two was, do you have a list of healthcare providers, medications, and allergies for each member of your family? So if there were an emergency, you don't want to be in a situation where, you're not in your right state of mind, you're panicking because there's something going on, there's some kind of crisis potentially. And, it's a good idea to have something centralized in your kitchen or your cabinet where you can easily and quickly provide, let's say, a first responder or an EMT, a list of medications for your family member, have a list of those health providers and medications that are on. My sister and I was recently thinking, I'm giving this to my clients, and I'm not sure what medications my mother's on. That's something we're going to start doing, getting information for the emergency, so that we will have that to be able to do a respond if need be if something should happen. So that's something that's easy to do, and you can put that in a centralized location in your household and let people know where they can find that, especially your family members and maybe siblings or parents, other people who would be involved in a situation that may involve an emergency. Number three is, and this is an important one. So I handled family law for about 20 years. And one of the issues that came up quite often when people, typically women, would come to my office, they didn't have access to important information in the household, such as the password to the computers, passwords to online accounts, phones, medical portals, things like that. And I think that's also really important to have. So if there was an emergency or some type of crisis situation, you don't want to be scrounging around. You don't want to be looking for, all over your house for these passwords, or you just don't even have them. Especially with children, it's really important to have access to their passwords to their phone, any digital devices that they use. Because for one thing, you want to have access to what they're doing and make sure that they're not putting themselves in a dangerous situation. But you also should have that just if you keep your finances on your household computer. If you need to get into those finances, do you have the password to the computer? Your husband's computer, your computer. I think there should be a central kind of registry where you want to keep that information so that if you need to get that information, you'll have it. Again, if you're taking care of an elderly parent, it's also really important. I have people come in and we're trying to do estate planning for the parents. They're maybe in long-term care or they're in a nursing facility and they don't have access to this information. And if it's online, there's no way for me to get that information. The child needs to have those passwords so that we can access the information that we need in order to do estate planning or long-term care planning for that elderly parent. So that's really important as well.
Yeah, and Tara, I would just pop in and say that it's also important, you have tools where that information can be held and only accessed in the event of emergency, right?
Yes, I have a new tool, a legacy planning tool that will be presented within the next couple weeks, and we're offering that to clients where they can store all this digitally. And it's really cool because you can name that they're called deputies, and these deputies can have access to certain parts of your information, but not all of the information. So let's say you want to give them access to your legal documents, but you're not going to give them access to all of your financial documents. You can do that. You can also say that I want to give them access, but only, you know, in these certain situations that they can have access. So it's a really cool tool, and I'm really excited to roll that out within the next couple of weeks. So number 4 is, are you familiar with the household finances? So before, number 3 was, do you have access? Do you have the passwords? Can you get online? But number 4 is, are you familiar with the household finances? So, you know, if you're a married couple and let's say one spouse is primarily in charge or responsible for paying the household bills, managing the budget, getting access to the retirement accounts or financial accounts, you know, creating and providing the accountant with the tax information. Maybe the other spouse isn't involved. And that's really a mistake, because if something happens to that spouse who's responsible for the household bills, then in an emergency situation or a crisis, if that person's incapacitated, you're not going to know even what you have or you know, what you have available, what your resources are. And that happens quite often as well. I've had people come into my office to do you know, estate planning or long-term care planning, and maybe it's the wife who comes in, typically the older it's typically the wife. She's coming in, the husband's developing dementia. And we do some quick planning for his family. And I ask her, you know, where are your assets? You know, where are your assets? If she has no idea, then it's really at that point we're kind of we're you know, we're taking time, we're taking additional time in order to locate these resources and find what's available to pay for his care. So that's really important to be familiar with the household finances. Where are your legal documents? Where is your financial information? Where are your financial documents? Do you have the information available to pay your taxes? What are your insurance policies? Do you have life insurance? Who holds those, what company holds those policies, and where can you find them if you need to? Number 5, and this is something that was personal to me. Are you familiar with household systems? We had a flood in our house where a pipe broke and the basement water was pouring into our basement, and I had no idea where the main water valve was. So I did not know how to turn off the water to the house. If my husband hadn't been there, our whole basement would have been completely flooded because I had no idea. So one of the things that I think it's important to be familiar with the household system. So if, you know, the person who's generally in charge of those systems, if they're incapacitated, are you going to be able to continue to run the household? You know, where is the main water valve shut off? Do you know how to use the water treatment system? Where's the sump pump, and how do you make sure that it's on? So these are important things. And, you know, one thing that it's kind of easy to do is maybe just put a manual somewhere, create a manual, create kind of a checklist, so that the person who's normally not responsible for those systems would have access to it in the event of an emergency in the household. Number 6, and this is part of an estate plan, but important really for everyone to have powers of attorney for financial and healthcare matters. In the event that you are incapacitated, no one will get to act on your behalf unless you have a legal financial power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney. So the financial power of attorney will allow your person that you appoint to file your taxes, pay bills, get access to your mortgage information, your health information. That's really important, especially if you can't take care of these matters for yourself. So you appoint someone you can trust that would do this. And there's 2 ways to do it. You can have it effective immediately, or you can also choose to have it become effective only when you become incapacitated. If your doctor says that you're incapacitated and not able to manage your financial affairs, then that's when your financial property would become effective. And that would be, so this is only while you're alive and you're able to make these decisions. Same with health care. In the event of a health crisis, if you don't have a health care property, potentially a situation where no one can make health care decisions for you. Another situation is if you have, let's say, 3 children and they have different opinions, which child's opinion is the doctor going to accept? So if you choose the person who you think is what you want, then that's the person you want to choose. This is a discussion that you want to have with your family, with the people that you're choosing, to make sure that they're aware of what your wishes are and what you would want to happen in the event of an emergency or if you're incapacitated.
Tara, I'm going to pop in real quick. I'm getting garbled on my end. I just want to make sure the attendees can hear us. The attendees, if you could either hit me on the chat box or post something in questions. I just want to make sure you're able to hear Tara and that our Wi-Fi connection is okay.
Todd here, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much. Sorry about that. Wanted to make sure we were broadcasting okay. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Number 7, so if you haven't created a will or a trust, I think it's really important for you to do so. The point of a will or a trust is that you get to make your decision as to who you want to receive your assets, how you want the beneficiaries to receive them, and under what conditions. So a will and a trust, they're 2 separate types of plans, depending on your goals and your objectives. But if you want to do some asset protection planning, you want to protect your child's inheritance from future divorce or bankruptcy or creditors, then you might want to look at a trust. If you have maybe a really, really simple estate, then maybe a will plan is best for you. But either way, you should have one or the other to make sure that there's not going to be any family disharmony. There's not going to be arguments in the future about what you wanted to happen. And if you don't have that, then the court is going to decide based on Maryland law who gets what. And a trust is not for wealthy people. A trust really in this day and age is dependent on if you want your estate to be private, if you want to avoid probate, and if you want to give asset protection to your beneficiaries. And if you want this process to be easy and seamless, that's really what a trust does. It doesn't necessarily matter how much or how little you have. It's really what your objectives are and what's important to you. So that's what we talk about. And that's what is determined. That's what determines which plan that we're going to go with. Number 8. So do you have a living will or advance directive? This is also part of the healthcare power of attorney. But an advance directive basically is you're giving instructions now while you're of sound mind, while you're competent, while you're healthy, that in the future, if I have a healthcare emergency, if death is imminent, if I am in a persistent vegetative state, this is what I want to happen, or this is what I don't want to happen. This is really important. This really takes the burden off of your family members for making that decision when the time comes. Because then after, they're in the right mindset, it's frantic, and you don't want your family to be thinking about, well, what would mom want me to do? What would dad want me to do? You make that decision. You've already communicated to them what you want to happen in the event of these specific situations. So they know and they feel comfortable, and they can make that decision because they know they're doing what you want, and they're fighting your wishes. So, especially right now, it's really important. I mean, if you have a sudden emergency and you can't communicate what you want to happen, this is the document along with your healthcare power of attorney, giving your agent power to make those decisions for you and to do what you would want to do in the situation. Number 9, if you are a parent or you have children, have you created a point of guardianship? So if you have any minor children under the age of 18, in Maryland, you're a minor if you're under 18, and when you become 18, you're an adult. So if something should happen to you and your spouse or parents, who's going to care for your children? Who's going to care for them on a daily basis? Where are they going to live? A lot of times, if you don't have a nominated guardian, then it's a lot of times what will happen is you have both the grandparents fight over the children, and that's really what you don't want. So if you have a nomination of guardian, the court's going to look at that nomination and say, well, this is who the parents are comfortable with, this is who they wanted to raise their children. So the court is going to heavily weigh that in their favor. There's some reason not to appoint her or his people as the guardians of the children. And the guardians don't necessarily care the money. They can, but the guardians where the children live primarily, and then you would have a separate custodian or trustee of the money if that's what you want to do. But really, it's where the children are going to live in the event that you are not here to take care of them. And number 10, you have life insurance policies. So, especially if you have younger children, it's definitely worth looking at life insurance policies. If you haven't already done that, a lot of times we'll fund estate plans with insurance. So there's not a lot of cash available. And one of the important things is that we use life insurance proceeds to fund the estate on a death of a person. That gives the estate cash that's available to do different things. Again, life insurance can provide money for to take care of your children until they're an adult. It can pay for their college education. It can pay for their inheritance or their legacy that you want to leave them. So a lot of times we'll make life insurance benefits payable to a trust or an estate so that the children have money to care for them in the future. So that's a really important piece, and we use that a lot in estate planning scenarios. So recently we have a new tool that our clients can use to keep everything in one place. It's kind of a depository and a central location for all of your information. So your health and medical, your legal documents, your just kind of about me. You can upload family photos and you can say things about it. You can upload, grandma's recipe that's been in the family for 50 years. That's really important. And you can put that into the system and have that so that it doesn't get lost. You can write letters to your family and keep them in this central location. So if something should happen to you, your deputies, as they're called, would have access to either all of the information if you so choose, or as much information as you want them to have. So maybe your power of attorney you may want to give them access to your financial maybe your financial documents, and especially, the legal documents, so that they would have access to that if they needed. But it's a really cool tool, and it's a nice way to pass on messages to your family after you're gone. Or if you're incapacitated, it's a central place where all of your information can be kept, passwords. There's a lot of things and information you can put in there. So funeral, what you want your funeral to be like, if you have any burial instructions, your wishes with your healthcare. So all that can be in there and available if need be. So we'll be rolling that out in the next week or so to our clients. And I think that'll be a really nice thing to have. So we have a couple checklists. We have a family protection planning checklist. This is the one that we talked about today. We also have a checklist that discusses wills, trusts, and probate, and gives a little overview, a general overview of the process and wills and trusts. And then we will be, I don't think it's out yet, but we have another checklist that's coming out. It's just for long-term care planning. So if you are a person who is older and maybe looking at long-term care options, or if you have elderly parents who either are in a nursing home, or you think at some point they may need to do some long-term care planning, whether it be for them to stay at home, or they may be in a situation where they may have to go to a nursing home. We have a long-term care planning checklist to help you, guide you through that process. And there's some good things just to kind of start discussions with maybe elderly parents, because they are difficult conversations. And I give you some tips and advice as to how to start those conversations, and really what you should be talking about with your elderly parent in order to look for that. The average cost of nursing homes in Maryland is usually $8,000 to $10,000. So, if you don't plan ahead, that money can be used up pretty quickly. And we have strategies where we can save the family a good portion of that money if you do some good pre-planning. So I urge you to check out those checklists. And I think we are offering the checklist to everyone on this call, so we can email those to you.
Yeah,
and
I think we can open it up now for questions. We just had one question to kick it off. How long do you think it might take to completely populate the portal? And I did respond that we already actually have some clients using that platform, but Tara, do you have anything else to add for that question?
For the legacy planning tool, you can put as much information in as at any given time. I think probably to get a good start, it would take about 15 minutes. And then you can finish it off. You can go in and out whenever you want to add additional information. So it's kind of a long-term planning tool that you can add as things come up. I generally will go ahead and upload my clients' legal documents for them, so they'll already have that populated into their tool, and then they can go in and put their own financial information, whatever information they want to put in. As they can put in as much and fill out the whole thing, or as little as they want. So it's really a customizable tool for every person.
Awesome. Okay, we have another question. If we pick an appointment of guardianship for our daughter, is there a possibility someone could dispute that?
Yes. So really, anyone can ask the court to appoint them as a guardian if they have a good basis for it. But the court would look at your nomination as very persuasive in their determination as to who to appoint. So if both parents say, we nominate mother's parents as the guardians, then it's going to be a hard obstacle to overcome unless the person who's petitioning can prove that those people are not appropriate, that they are not fit to care for the children. So it's really, they'd have to prove that they're unfit to overcome that burden.
And I think
But ultimately the court's going to decide what's in the best interest of the children. It comes down to that.
And I think the big point there, Tara, correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you have not appointed a guardian, if you haven't done that ahead of time, then everything can be disputed. So the point is to do it ahead of time because there's a lot less chance for a dispute or something to be overturned, right?
Correct. If you don't have anything in place, then it's pretty much a free-for-all. If you have a sister who says, I should take care of the children, and then you have, husband's brother who wants the children, and then you have each set of grandparents, you might have a custody dispute involving 4 or 5 different people fighting over your kids. And that's the worst thing to happen. You do not want that. So you definitely want to have a nomination of guardian appointing who you want to care for your children.
Okay, next question, Tara. If I give Frame and Frame access to the tool, can Frame and Frame staff help populate some of the docs they've created?
Yes, and I've done that for the clients who are using it now. I've gone ahead and uploaded their powers of attorney, their living will and advance directive, their will, their trust. So everything I have, I populated ahead of time, put in their general information, and then I'll send it. If there's anything else that I have that they want me to upload, I can do that as well. So yes, we're going to help get that information in for you as best we can.
Okay, let's see, next question. Is there a subscription-based, is this a subscription-based product?
It is, but we pay for it for our clients. So at some point, if someone is not our client, then there is a separate subscription. But for our clients, we provide that as a value add, as a service to our clients.
Awesome. Okay. Any other questions out there? Looks like we've answered most of the ones that had come up initially. What I'm going to do is open up the mics here, and if anyone would like to ask Tara questions directly, your mic should be open if you would like to speak, or if you'd like to put it in the Q&A box. I just wanted to chime in while we're waiting for any more questions on this particular tool. The one thing I found really interesting about it is that your life changes, right? Whatever we decide on today changes next year. You get married, you get divorced, you have kids, things change. And what I really like about this tool is that it's very, very easy to make changes to your wishes. So that's one thing that I really like about it. The fact that Tara is able to upload documents into the tool for her clients just eliminates a whole process of, taking a picture, uploading it to the app. So it is an app and it is mobile friendly, which was another question, I think. And then the other thing I wanted to point out about this is that the key to me in this tool is that if I have specific financial information or wishes that I really don't want to make public until after something happens to me, all of those things can be if-then scenarios. So if I'm incapacitated, then someone can, Tara can be contacted to open up that portal and let those people have access to that information. But there are certain pieces of information you can actually have remain private until or if some sort of crisis situation happens. So I think that's really a cool part of that tool too.
Yeah, and the one thing I like about it is also just it's not all legal and financial. I think there's things you can upload, like I said, family recipes. You can put in your favorite songs, music choices. You can tell the family kind of about you. So you can get really,
right?
You can get really personal. Which how often do you tell tell your friends, oh, these are my favorite songs, or this is kind of things about me, or this is the recipe that I bring to all these parties, and then when you go with share all that, kind of pass on your legacy of who you are, to your friends and family or whoever you choose to share it with. So I think it's really cool for that.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. All right, are there any more questions out there before we close it down? Hopefully we've Tara provided you some great information. The checklists are available on the website at frameandframe.com. Yeah, there we go, frameandframe.com. So you can download the family protection checklist there. And Tara, you're meeting people virtually now?
Yes, we have secure virtual video conferences and as well as telephone conferences if someone doesn't have a computer available. And yeah, and we're always available to answer any questions. So if you come up with something or you think of something that we've kind of jogged in your mind, a question that you might have, just feel free to give us a call or shoot me an email, or you can go to the website, contact us, and we'll get that and respond.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Keep following Frame and Frame for more details. And if you'd like information on anything you've seen here, hop out on the website and contact Tara and she'll be happy to help you.